Hey everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Unbeatable. Unbeatable is a rhythm adventure game. This means that the core gameplay hook is the rhythm gameplay, but be ready for a bit of story to go along with it as you go from scene to scene. Playing as Beat, a musician, you are thrust into a world where music is outlawed. After meeting other musicians and forming a band, you fight back against the law. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat? It's called Unbeatable, but it's not really unbeatable. Clearly, you were talking about it, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, it's
a very unique rhythm game, wouldn't you say, Chris?
Yeah, and I think, the premise is really what it's all about. At least that's what they're trying to push. And that's where, you have to imagine yourself in a city where music is illegal. And your solution is to start a band, right? And it's giving you that kind of like School of Rock. I mean, this is not a rebellion. This is a noise complaints with ambition. And I just feel like when you have a game like, Unbeatable, which drops you into a dystopia where songs are a contraband and crimes are best committed with instruments on your back. Did that work for you? Because, part of me, Henrik, was kind of giggling a little bit in a sense where they're like, music's illegal. We don't even know what music even sounds like. But a lot of these characters are carrying instruments on their back. Make it all make sense.
Well, they're carrying them illegally. That's what it is. Just so people understand the story maybe a little bit better, the premise of it. It's illegal to play music because it summons these things called silence, and it's just a manifestation of emotions, or maybe even the lack of emotions in some ways.
Yeah.
And that causes destruction on a wide scale. And so they outlawed music as a result of that. And there's a whole organization that makes sure that nobody plays music and rules over the country in a dictatorship as a result of that.
In a sense, though,
these people, they're running around with contraband and maybe it doesn't make a ton of sense. But at the same time, think about if they were to get rid of the ability to carry guns in this country.
Yeah, and I hate to be this person. I hate to be this person to make this comparison, but I feel like haven't we already heard this story before a little bit? There's a gentleman named Johnny Silverhand who plays in a band, and he might not necessarily lose his instruments, but he is singing about anti-establishment messages, and so that was hard for me to get out of my head as I was starting to play this game, and it's a little corny too, in a sense too, especially when you go to the prison and they're like, hey man, like, how did you get here? Well, I taught the clarinet. And you're like, really, dude? And then all of a sudden
you say it like that, so it is silly.
It's so dumb, dude. And then all of a sudden you follow Beat and her crew as they run from the law, they fight the system, and then somehow, as we're saying, they're carrying these instruments while claiming they don't remember even what music even sounds like. And so, Henrik, like right out the gate, did that premise grab you, or did you feel like it kind of felt like a missed note?
Actually, it wasn't the premise so much that grabbed my attention, rather in this game. It was more the gameplay loop, because we kind of have already, I'm sure, done a good handful of rhythm games on Pause or Repeat. And they've all typically done the typical thing for a rhythm game where there's maybe a story, but it's just like visual novel style. And it's in between these levels where you're playing a rhythm game. But this game takes it a different method where, yes, there is the gameplay of the rhythm gameplay, but in between that, you're actually roaming around and talking to people and inspecting things. And it's a bit more of, it reminded me of like the Resident Evil style walking around as well, where it's like the old Resident Evil, where
like PS1, PS2 kind of a stuff. Yeah.
And it did seem interesting.
And that does come with camera issues like this game.
Yeah, exactly. But the story really is, at that point, a integral part of the experience. And fortunately, the story, it is a little silly at times, and it does also suffer from some pacing issues throughout the story.
I'm with you, Henrik. I feel like the story leans hard into the stylish anime vibes, almost like Persona storyboard escape. It's like Notebook and then wandered into the rhythm game. But the emotional beats feel fuzzy. I mean, especially when characters treat music like a lost art while literally hauling it around town. I still can't get over that. And so, did that contradiction bug you too, or am I being a little overly precious about logic in this game?
Yeah, that contradiction didn't really bother me too much. What bothered me more was that in a game where you're fighting against the establishment, the pacing of the story in the beginning especially can be really, really slow. It makes
Well,
it
especially
feel
when you
like
don't
it's
even
just
get into
long to
the
get
rhythm
through.
game. It's like I
So
feel
yeah,
like the first 30
exactly. You
minutes
haven't
is
really
like
gotten
just
into the
walking
actual
around.
gameplay. So,
Yeah, and then I think
um,
another thing too is
yeah.
oh here, go ahead, Henrik. You're gonna say something.
I was just gonna say, and in terms of the story beats, it does have a nice payoff at the very end of the game, but you got to play like 8 hours to get to that point. So,
Yeah, but don't you feel like the game, it's like instead of like locking into rhythm, the game scatters itself across like mini games that feel like band practice. If anybody's actually joined a
mhm.
band where like everyone's in a different tuning on their instruments, you're gonna be like hitting home runs, you're gonna be playing snooker and then dodging camera issues, but rarely feeling like the game knows what a tempo even is. And I think that's what kind of drove me nuts. And did it ever click for you, or did you feel like the conductor never showed up? I feel like it was missing that. Like it feel like a third of the game was rhythm, and then the rest was actually walking around in some of these level designs that feel little lackluster, I'd say.
Well, maybe that's exactly why they put an arcade style mode in the game because
Yeah.
they understand maybe not everyone's going to jive with the story and their approach to it,
Which is
and
unfortunate
maybe
because
they're
I
okay
don't.
with that
Do you feel
because
like the
that's
arcade
why they
mode
put
was
that
the
mode in
grab?
there.
I don't think the arcade mode was the grab. Like once I
No,
finished
it
the game,
definitely
I was
wasn't
ready
the
to turn
grab.
the game
The
off.
story mode is what real like I said, the approach to this kind of game is what drew my attention,
Yeah.
and that is the story mode. The arcade mode, we've seen that tons of times.
Yeah,
And
Ripped of
don't
the
get me wrong,
Necromancer.
the rhythm gameplay is really good and it goes really well with their excellent soundtrack, but when you're trying to sell the game as this story-based mode being the main focus and it doesn't really grab me in
Like,
the same way
find
that
your
I wanted it
target
to, it's
audience.
a
Like, it
shame.
seemed like they didn't know whether they wanted to write to 12 and 16-year-olds or 18 and up. It really didn't know where it was
Yeah.
trying to send this message to. But yeah, like visually, Unbeatable has undeniable style. I mean, it's got bold
Mhm.
colors, expressive characters, even though the NPCs lack any kind of emotion, but it does have that slick presentation that screams attitude, something that you love in punk
Yeah.
rock. But the environments often feel empty. I'd say, the NPCs fade like super fast, other than the guy that says, I am in jail because I taught clarinet. I can't get that out of my head. That shit made me laugh so freaking hard. But I don't know. It's like, did the vibe carry you through, or did the world start feeling a little hollow? Because I think that's
Well, I
the
saw it as
draw.
maybe the world feeling like that was part of them trying to represent that you're in a dystopian society where people can't listen to music, something that I feel like is something that's very human, that brings vibrancy to the world. And as a result of the lack of that, there's not really a whole lot of vibrance in that world that you're exploring. But at the same time, when you're looking at the character designs of some of these characters, they're really, really detailed for the main characters, even to the point of like they'll be bouncing on a rhythm, and I
Yeah.
like that. But then you look at and you compare that to like some of the side characters, and you're like, oh, kind of
Yeah, and
touching
then you're
corners
literally
there.
only using like two buttons the whole entire time when it starts to get to the rhythm
Yeah.
game, and it's like that's what's really disappointing, and it starts to feel like a mobile game, and
Mhm.
it's like I don't know, there's nothing that's gonna win me over, and then to see that they already have like these day one DLCs for a game like this, it's like come on now, for $28 that should have already been in with the game, and yeah, its
Yeah.
ambition is there. It's it like you said, I mean it does have solid music choices. I mean the people that
Mhm.
compose this music, it's great, but I just wish that the gameplay and the pacing and just the overall identity was there. It just never really fully harmonized for me. And so that's why I'm gonna say it's a pause. But Henrik, where do
Mhm.
you land?
Yeah, I think this is it's a good game, but it wouldn't be a good enough story game for me to replay the story mode. I'll replay the arcade, But as a result of that, I'm going to say that it's a pause for me as well.
Yeah, and I think this is where we leave it off to you, the gamers. Is this rebellion worth sticking with, or one to shelf for now? And that's where we want to hear from you, the gamers. So go ahead and join along for the conversation.